Dear students, this is our second video lecture on kinetics and catalysis. In the first lecture, I explained the steady state approximation. And now in this second lecture, I'll explain the various steps involved in chain reactions, then stationary and non-stationary chain reactions, and explosion limits. Okay, you know what chain reactions are, right? And these chain reactions are complex reactions with complex rate expressions. And in a chain reaction, the intermediate produced in one step will generate an intermediate in another step. And this process goes on. Okay, these intermediates are called chain carriers. Sometimes the chain carriers are radicals, sometimes they are ions, and in some other cases like nuclear fission, they are neutrons. Okay, now we'll see the various steps that are involved in chain reactions. One step that is found in all chain reactions is the chain initiation step. This chain initiation step can be either thermolysis or photolysis. Thermolysis involves absorption of heat and photolysis involves absorption of light. These leading to the breakage of a bond, lysis. Okay. An example is given here. Ethane molecule splits into two methyl free radicals. This is an example for a chain initiation step. Another step that is present in all the chain reactions is the propagation step. In this, the chain carrier makes another chain carrier. For example, the CH3 free radical that is formed in the initiation step reacts with another molecule of ethane to produce a methane molecule and CH3CH2 dot, that is ethyl radical. So this is propagation step. One free radical produced another free radical, right? One chain carrier produced another free radical in the propagation step. Next step that is present in some of the chain reactions is the chain branching reaction. In chain branching reaction, one chain carrier makes more than one chain carrier. For example, oxygen free radical reacts with H2O molecule to produce two hydroxyl free radicals. Okay, so this is an example for a branching chain reaction. One chain carrier produced more than one chain carrier. Okay, next step that can be present in a chain reaction is the retardation step. The chain carrier may react with a product, reducing the rate of formation of the product. For example, in the hydrogen bromine reaction, where hydrogen reacts with bromine to produce an HBr molecule, you can see that in the mechanism there is a step in which a hydrogen free radical reacts with the product HBr molecule to give hydrogen molecule plus Br dot. In this step, the product molecule HBr is used up. Clear? And this leads to a reduction in the rate of formation. This retardation makes another chain carrier, but the product concentration is reduced. Now, another step that is present in all the chain reactions is the chain termination step. In the chain termination step, the radicals combine and the chain carriers are lost. CH3 CH2 dot reacts with CH3 CH2 dot to give CH3 CH2 CH2 CH3. Now you can see that two free radicals combined together to produce a molecule which is not a chain carrier. Okay, so this is chain termination. Another step that may be present in a chain reaction is the inhibition step. The chain carriers are removed by other processes other than termination. Say for example by chain radicals. Okay, So in this chain inhibition step also, free radicals are removed. An example is given here. Ethyl free radical reacts with a foreign free radical to give CH3CH2R. Okay, so this is inhibition. Now we have discussed 6 different steps of chain reaction. All these steps need not be there for a given reaction. The minimum necessary are the initiation, propagation and termination. Others may be present or not. Okay. Now, the rate laws of chemical reactions. As I told, the rate laws of chain reactions are almost always complex, very complex. How do we account for the rate laws of these chain reactions? See, the thermal decomposition reaction of acetaldehyde. This reaction appears to follow 3/2 order in acetaldehyde. Okay, the overall reaction that is involved in the decomposition of acetaldehyde is acetaldehyde gas produces methane gas plus carbon monoxide gas. And experimentally, it is found that the rate of this reaction, which is the rate of formation of methane, that is d by dt of the concentration of CH4, is equal to K into concentration of CH3CHO raised to half. This is the experimentally observed rate of formation of CH4 or the rate of decomposition of acetaldehyde. Okay. And the mechanism for this reaction, known as the Rice-Herzfeld mechanism, which is the most accepted mechanism which explains this observed mechanism, observed rate law very well. Okay, is the Rice-Herzfeld mechanism. That mechanism, which involves 4 steps, is given here. The 4 steps are: first one, initiation step, then 2 propagation steps, and a termination step. The rates for each of these elementary steps is also given here. Okay. You may take down your notebook and write the lecture notes. Okay. Now, although this mechanism explains the principal products CH4 and CO, there are several other minor products like acetone and propanol which are not shown here. But this mechanism is enough to explain it, or it explains correctly the observed rate of the reaction. Now, the rate equation can be derived on the basis of steady state approximation. For that, first you have to write the rate of change of intermediates. Okay, that you know how to write. I have explained it already in the first video lecture, isn't it? You write the rate of change of intermediates and then you set it equal to 0 so that you can derive expressions for the concentration of methyl radical, methyl free radical and the concentration of CH3CO free radical, right? You may take the sum of these two equations and then you may derive from it the concentration of methyl free radical. Okay. Do it in your notebook. See whether you are getting these equations as is given in this presentation. Okay. Now it follows that the rate of formation of methane is d by dt of the concentration of methane is equal to Kb into CH3 dot concentration of methyl free radical into concentration of acetaldehyde equal to Kb into, you have to substitute for the concentration of methyl free radical, right? And you finally you will get Kb into Ka by 2 Kd the whole raised to half into concentration of acetaldehyde raised to 3 by 2. This you must get. Okay. Now, this mechanism thus explains the observed rate expression. Okay. And it is sure that the true rate law is more complicated than that is observed experimentally. So that's all uh, with the decomposition of acetaldehyde, thermal decomposition of acetaldehyde. Now, there are several other cases where the reaction is complicated. For example, consider the case of the reaction of hydrogen molecule with bromine molecule to form HBr molecule. The observed rate for the hydrogen bromine reaction is the rate of formation of HBr equal to K into concentration of hydrogen into concentration of bromine raised to 3 by 2, the whole divided by concentration of bromine plus K into K dash into concentration of HBr. This is the experimentally observed rate law for the formation of hydrogen bromide. Now, the following mechanism has been proposed to account for this observed rate law. It involves several steps like initiation, two propagation steps, a retardation step, and a termination step. The last step, you can see the presence of the species M. It is the third body collision that is given in this termination step. Okay. This removes the excess energy of the bromine free radical so that these two can combine together to give a bromine molecule. So this is the proposed mechanism which explains well the observed rate equation for or the observed rate law for the hydrogen bromine reaction. Okay. Hope you all are writing lecture notes. Now, there can be other recombinations in addition to the one that is given, like H plus may react with H plus or H dot may react with Br plus and so on. Okay. Now, the net rate of formation of HBr will be d by dt of concentration of HBr. And this HBr is present in three different steps. You can see that HBr is formed in two propagation steps and is used up in the retardation step. So HBr in the mechanism appears in three different steps. So the rate equation for HBr will contain three different terms. Right. Now, we can apply the steady state approximation so that you can substitute for the concentration of intermediates in this equation. Like you have to substitute for the concentration of bromine free radical and for the concentration of H dot hydrogen free radical. Okay, you know that the final rate equation should be in terms of the concentration of the reactants and products and not, it should not involve what, the concentration of the intermediates, right? So you have to substitute for these concentration terms, concentration of the intermediates. So in order to do this, you have to apply steady state approximation. Apply steady state approximation to the rate of change of concentration of hydrogen free radical and bromine free radical, and then derive the expressions for the concentrations of bromine free radical and hydrogen free radical, substitute it, and finally derive the equation d by dt of HBr is equal to 2 kb into Ka by Kd raised to half into concentration of hydrogen into concentration of bromine raised to 3 by 2, the whole divided by concentration of Br2 plus Kc by Kb dash into concentration of HBr. This is the equation that you should get. Okay. Derive it properly, carefully, without making any mistakes. Then finally you will arrive here. Now, compare the equation that is derived with the one that is experimentally observed. The experimentally observed rate equation is given in red and blue here, right? Now, comparing the experimentally observed equation with the one that is derived, you will get the value of K and K dash. Now, the presence of HBr in the denominator of the rate equation indicates that it is an inhibitor. That is, the presence of HBr will inhibit the reaction. Now, the presence of Br2 in the denominator is because of the fact that its presence removes the reactive radicals from the chain mechanism. Now, if we plot HBr concentration as a function of time, it will reach a maximum as increased presence of HBr will retard the reaction. Okay, with increasing amounts of HBr, retardation will also take place. Chain retardation will also take place. Okay, that's all regarding this. Now we'll explain stationary and non-stationary chain reactions. So for that, consider a general scheme for a chain reaction, which involves three steps. A gives R, which is the initiation step. R plus A gives P plus alpha R. And the third step, R undergoing destruction. In these steps, A is the reactant, R is the reactive chain carrier, P is the product, and alpha is the number of chain carriers produced by the chain carrier in the propagation step. Okay. Now, the destruction of chain carrier may be either due to collision with the walls of the vessel or with other molecules in the gaseous phase. Okay. Now, the rate of formation of the chain carrier will be dr by dt is equal to K1 into concentration of A minus K2 into concentration of R into concentration of A plus alpha into K2 into concentration of R into concentration of A and minus K3 into concentration of R, isn't it? This is the rate of formation of chain carrier. R is formed in the initiation step. R is used up in the second step. And R is alpha number of R is produced in second step. And R is depleted in the termination step, right? So the rate equation, the rate of formation of the chain carrier R, this will contain four different terms. Okay. See, the first term is K1 into concentration of A. This is the rate of formation of R in the initiation step. Now, R is used up in the propagation step, isn't it? Now, the rate of this step is equal to K2 into concentration of R into concentration of A. And now the rate at which uh, it is formed in propagation step is given by alpha into K2 into concentration of R into concentration of A. And now again it is used up in the termination step and the rate of this reaction will be minus K3 into concentration of R. You know how to assign minus and plus signs, right? Now, for a steady reaction rate, this dr by dt will be equal to 0. And now you can derive the expression for the concentration of R, which will be equal to K1 into concentration of A divided by K2 into concentration of A minus alpha into K2 into concentration of A plus K3, isn't it? Hope you are able to derive this. Now the constant K3 can be written as the sum of two terms, Kw for the wall reaction and Kg for the gas phase reaction. Okay, thus concentration of R is equal to K1 into concentration of A divided by K2 into 1 minus alpha. K2 and concentration of A being common can be taken outside, plus Kw plus Kg. Clear? This is the equation for concentration of R. Now, if the value of alpha is equal to 1, the reaction where the propagation sequence leads to the formation of a molecule of product and the regeneration of only one chain carrier, such chain reactions are termed non-branched or stationary chain reactions. That means in the propagation step, if one chain carrier produces another chain carrier, it is a non-branched chain reaction or a stationary chain reaction. Clear? In such cases, the radical concentration is proportional to the ratio of its rate of formation uh, to the rate of destruction. Okay. Now, if alpha is greater than 1, that is, more than one chain carriers are produced in the propagation sequence of a reaction, the chain is termed a non stationary or a branched chain reaction. Now, a critical situation arises when alpha becomes so large that K2 into concentration of A into 1 minus alpha, that is the first term in the denominator, equal to minus of Kw plus Kg, thereby making the denominator in this equation to approach 0 and the carrier concentration is infinite. Right? If the denominator is equal to 0, then the concentration of R will be equal to infinite. Any number divided by 0 will give infinite. Right? Now, since the reaction rate is proportional to the chain carrier concentration, the reaction proceeds so rapidly that an explosion results. That is, the reaction is completed within a very short time. Such explosions are termed isothermal explosions. Right? So, in order for explosion reactions to take place, or isothermal reaction will take place only in those cases where the value of alpha is greater than 1. Yeah. Now, all the explosions may not be isothermal, some are thermal. We'll discuss them now. Explosions are of two kinds, thermal and isothermal. Isothermal explosions are otherwise termed chain branching explosions. Thermal explosions. It is because it happens in exothermic reactions. Thermal explosions happens in exothermic reactions. If the energy cannot escape, the reaction rate increases fast due to concentration of energy. And such explosions are termed thermal explosions. It arises out of the excess energy that is not able to escape from the system. Now we'll explain chain branching explosions or isothermal explosions. In this case, there are chain branching reactions and the number of carriers grows exponentially. An example is the hydrogen oxygen reaction. Hydrogen reacts with oxygen to give water. The mechanism is very complex, yet there are these steps which explain the explosion. Some steps of the mechanism are given which are enough to explain the explosion behavior. Okay. The initiation reaction that is involved in the hydrogen oxygen reaction is H2 plus O2 gives 2 hydroxyl free radicals. And the propagation reaction must involve the following four steps. H2 plus OH free radical gives hydrogen free radical plus water. O2 plus hydrogen free radical gives oxygen free radical plus hydroxyl free radical. That is a branching step. One free radical produced two different free radicals, or one chain carrier produced two chain carriers. Another propagation step is the reaction of O free radical with hydrogen to produce hydroxyl free radical and a hydrogen free radical. Again, you can see that one reactive intermediate produced two reactive intermediates. That is again a branching reaction. Now H dot plus O2 plus a third body M gives HO2 plus M star. This is again another propagation step. Now you can see that there are two branching steps in the propagation that is given here. Propagation involves so many steps, but these four are enough to explain the explosion in this hydrogen oxygen reaction. Now the explosion depends on temperature and pressure, which is explained in the figure. See this figure, it is a Z-shaped graph, isn't it? You can see first explosion limit, second explosion limit, and third explosion limit in this graph. This graph explains the temperature pressure dependence of explosion. Let's move through the dotted lines from the x-axis. At low pressures, the chain carriers can reach the walls and get lost. Okay, because it is very difficult for a chain carrier to meet with another chain carrier so that these two can react together. So at low pressures, the chain carriers can reach the walls and get lost. Okay, and no explosion will happen at very low pressures. Now, as the pressure is increased along the dotted lines shown in the graph, the radicals react before reaching the walls, and the reaction suddenly becomes explosive. Okay, these radicals, H dot and hydroxyl free radicals, cannot reach the walls, and propagation steps will take place. And you can see that the propagation steps involves so many branching steps also. So the reaction will proceed at a very large rate, and explosion will suddenly happen when the pressure reaches a particular value. This is the first explosion limit. And beyond that, with increase in pressure, uh, the explosion will continue. And in the second explosion limit, the pressure of the products is high, so that the reactions of the type O2 plus HO dot gives HO2 dot occur. These recombination reactions become efficient as the excess energy can be removed by three-body collisions. Then the explosion will stop and the reaction goes on smoothly. That means above a particular pressure, uh, the reaction will become steady. No explosion will take place above that pressure. And this will go on, the reaction will go on taking place like this smoothly until it reaches a third pressure limit. In the third explosion limit, the thermal explosions occur. Free radicals will combine with the third bodies and all, but the excess energy produced during these reactions, these exothermic reactions, uh, will lead to what? Thermal explosions. And at the third explosion limit, reactions such as HO2 dot plus H2 gives H2O2 plus H dot. Such reactions will dominate, and the elimination of HO2 by the walls will take place. Okay, this is the hydrogen oxygen reaction. We'll discuss this hydrogen oxidation in coming lectures. Okay. For the time being, in order to understand what explosion and explosion limits are, this is enough. Now that's all in this video lecture. Hope you all have understood, and you must listen to this video lecture so many times so that you can understand more. Write lecture notes, and even then, if you are not able to understand things, you may call me, or you may ask it through your Google Classroom or through your common group. Okay, WhatsApp. That's all. Thank you.